Welcome to the Business Radio Network. Enjoy Small Biz, Big Voices with Stephanie Rising.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Rising, a business coach and author in beautiful Tucson, Arizona. Being a small business owner is rewarding, but can feel lonely. Few people understand what it's like to sweat payroll, market themselves as a brand, or create revenue streams from scratch. For the next hour, join your tribe on Small Biz, Big Voices, the podcast that celebrates the stories and impact of your fellow small business owners. Today, we're going to visit with musicians and brothers, Salvador and Christian Lopez. Our interview will conclude with a Proust lightning round, and our final segment will be Dear Coach, when I'll coach listeners through issues they've emailed in. First, it's my pleasure to introduce Salvador and Christian Lopez. The Lopez brothers, affectionately known as the LaBros, have entertained over 100,000 people all over the world, including the southwestern United States, Western Europe, Mexico, and China. Winners of Tucson's Got Talent and the Academy Music Awards, Sal and Chris have been featured at the International Trombone Festival, ABC Studios, the National Association of Women Business Owners, as well as many other schools, associations, and corporations. The LaBros have combined their love of music with their desire to inspire others in an awesome experience called Keynote Concerts. The Lopez brothers tell stories of overcoming adversity and motivate with original music that some have described as Mozart meets Tower of Power. The LaBros Keynote Concerts leave audiences truly inspired and motivated to forge their own paths to success. They have expanded their business repertoire to include composing custom songs for businesses to use in their marketing, as well as for commemorating loved ones at celebrations of life. Sal and Chris's book, Amplify Your Success, is a bestseller on Amazon and illustrates the 5 steps that the brothers use to keep themselves on a path of success. The LaBros have shared the stage with notable acts such as Calexico, The Roots, the Tucson Symphony Orchestra, Chris Potter, Joseph Alessi, as well as political icon Gabrielle Giffords. Sal and Chris, welcome to the show, and thank you so much for spending time with us today.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Thank you so much. Man,
I'm excited.
Yeah, it's crazy to hear your bio. Like, man, those guys sound awesome.
You are awesome. I had so much fun putting that together.
Yeah, we'll need a copy of that.
No, well, you wrote all of it, except it just happens to exist in 4 different places because you guys are so busy. You have like your musical empire that you're building. So I will be happy to provide you with one distilled.
Yes, thank you.
That was great. Thank you.
My pleasure. In your book, Amplify Your Success, you talk about how people want to change. You know, some of us want to quit smoking. Some of us want to be a better parent. Some of us want to improve our business. But we struggle with how to do it and the habits that we have to form to do it. So we're going to talk about the system that you've personally used to affect those kinds of changes. But I wanted to start first with the story of how you developed it, because I know both of you only as adults. So the first time I heard your story, I was shocked because it's not, I mean, it isn't anything I remotely would have suspected to be true of the two of you. You're wildly talented. You are so successful. By all appearances, you have your poop together, right? However, as teenagers, you hit a pretty significant speed bump. So I thought we'd start with a bit about your story.
Sure. How much time do we have?
For this, you can go on for a good solid 5 minutes before we get to other questions. If you can distill it, because it's a big story.
Yeah, Chris, why don't you start that story off?
All right. Well, basically, it was high school. I was just going into my freshman year of high school. My brother was going into his senior year of high school, and then we were living in Paradise Valley. And basically, our parents had just gotten a divorce, so we found ourselves with a lot of free time. And we really could have used a good hobby, but what ended up happening is we started hanging out with a lot of people who smoked a lot of pot, and then a lot of people who smoked a lot of meth. And so essentially we became addicted to methamphetamine at a very early age. I was 14, and my brother was 16.
Wow.
Yeah, and, you know, things really started to spiral where we would sneak out at night, steal my mom's car, go to people's houses, hotel rooms, motel rooms, and wait around for hours till they got more because we heard they were going to get more. Eventually, we started buying in bulk. So now all of a sudden we were suppliers for all of our friends. And it wasn't long after that people started offering us, stolen goods for their fix. And the night that we realized that we needed to quit was a night that we had been smoking too much meth in my room. And I looked over to my brother and I said his name and he looked back at me, but I didn't recognize him.
Yeah.
His skin was pale. His eyes were sunken. He was starting to get sores on his mouth. And I said, we're killing ourselves and we need to quit or we're going to die.
Yeah.
And I don't want to die like this. And so it was like in that moment that we decided that we wanted to quit, that we took action. And we took like the pipe in hand, all the meth that we still had available. We threw it all into basically a trash bag and we tossed it in the dumpster in the back. So it was with that decision that we took action, because without that action, we would still be, we'll quit later, or maybe next time, or after we finish this bowl, or something like that, and it would have never happened.
And you just went cold turkey.
Cold turkey.
There's something in your heads. You just flipped that switch, and there was no going back.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and a big part of how we were able to do it was we talked about tribe. And basically, we were doing this together. So we had accountability, we had love, and we had a why. We had a purpose.
And that goes into your STARS system. And I heard this when I went to, I think it was the very first performance of your keynote concert, which was amazing. And it made a huge impression on me. And you talked about this system. So, whether someone is trying to achieve change in their personal lives or in their business, everyone struggles with the challenge of either overcoming a habit like you did or establishing new ones. So you describe your STAR system as start with the why, tribe matters, align your actions, right mindset, and start now. So based on what you went through, and especially because you went through it together, how did you come to identify those particular components as being essential?
Well, after analysis of what really happened, so we compiled the STAR system after, so we were able to look back with hindsight and realize what it is that actually helped us. And I believe that the STAR system has elements of those three components, that we are physical, we are emotional beings, we're also spiritual beings. And we need to take action in all three of those beingness to be able to actually create change.
Very cool.
Yeah, and we can go through the STAR system if you'd like.
Yeah, you touched on, start with the why, and indirectly, I know, looking across the room at your brother and not being able to recognize him because the condition that he was in, that's a pretty powerful why. And having your survival instinct kicked in. For a lot of people, I think they have difficulty creating a new habit because life is not at stake. I mean, you were in the high stakes poker round when you made that decision, but there are these little habits, these little changes that people have a hard time making, I think, because they don't really have such a visceral sense of the consequence. So how do you recommend that people get in touch with their why when it isn't so in their face like it was with you?
Do you want to? So we did have our backs against the wall, but it could have always gotten worse. At some point, he could have died. We could have been arrested. We could have been in prison. It could have gotten worse. And so in that respect, it's like, okay, maybe our backs really weren't up against the wall as much as we may have thought. So it would be tough to try and initiate change when you really don't have a big reason to. So I think it's finding that reason, like what what is it that drives you? What is the change you actually want to make? Why do you want to make that change? And even if it is a little change, there could be a big why behind it.
Mm-hmm. No, and I find, a lot of the changes that I have to make and the habits that I try and form, none of them are huge. They're not, it's not impossible. But I think sometimes that is almost the reason why it's so hard for me to do it. But as soon as I feel really connected to that sense of purpose, I mean, when you said you just kind of had that lightning bolt moment, that's usually what happens for me. Something in my brain just switches over and that's it. Like, it's very clear. I don't feel like there are a lot of obstacles or excuses, and you kind of just get into the flow of your decision. So being connected to why is very important. I know Simon Sinek talks about that. He has a really great YouTube video on that. Chris, why does tribe matter?
Yeah, I think that tribe is actually, one of the most important aspects of human life. I think that in order to see the change that we want, we have to surround ourselves with people who identify, with that, that change, and that, the people actually support you in what you're trying to accomplish. And so when we were addicted to meth, our tribe was meth heads, right?
Yeah.
And so that's how quickly we got into it. It was truly the power of tribe. And then when we were trying to quit meth, it was also the power of tribe, of me and my brother, that got us out of it.
Yeah.
And we knew we had to stay away from the meth heads and everything like that. And, there's a quote by the motivational speaker Jim Rohn that says, "You're the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with."
Yes, I've heard of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's so true. And, there's a quote by Steve Harvey that says that if 9 of your friends are broke, you're going to be the 10th. I just think it's also true.
It is true. And I have a client who subscribes to the whole 5-person theory. And he makes a point of meeting other business owners who are at a level that he is not yet at, and he has lunch with them, or he takes them out to coffee, he picks their brain, and he said he can't believe how much wisdom he's accumulated over the years just by having lunch with someone, because they know more than he does. And so he keeps building and building off of that information and leveraging it. So
absolutely,
pick your 5.
Yeah.
It matters.
Yeah. And I'm a big believer in investing in like coaching programs and masterminds and things like that, so that you're constantly surrounded by people who just have that big vision, for, and can support you.
And more objectivity. I mean, I'm a coach. I have a coach. I've always had a coach the whole time I've been in practice, because there are things I don't yet know. There are things I don't see about myself. So having that mentorship in any capacity, I think, is incredibly helpful.
Absolutely.
Now, talk about align your actions.
Right. So this is, a lot of people will say they want something, and then they'll do the opposite. And so really aligning your actions are so important. It just had to be in the STAR system, because you can't have the STAR system to affect change without actually somewhere in there taking action.
Yeah.
Because it's not just like, oh, I'm going to think about it, meditate about it, and it'll happen. There's a part of that that's, yes, you got to have your mind right, but you also have to take aligned action. And it's got to be consistent action too.
And I think I like that you start with the why, because when it comes to taking action, that's where a lot of people get derailed. Yeah. I mean, how many of us out there have been trying to lose like the same 5 or 10 pounds for 5 or 10 years? But it's very difficult to compete with the deliciousness of tacos. So if you are not strongly attached to your why, the aligning your actions part gets very difficult.
Yeah.
And that also, right mindset. So we've talked about actions, and you were also talking about how we're physical, spiritual, and emotional beings. So I'm assuming mindset is addressing kind of the non-physical part of the action that you have to take, or the state you have to be in.
It's either a spiritual or emotional part, the right mindset to believe that you can, to believe that you're worthy, to believe that it's going to happen. I mean, all the right mindset is is very important. It could be a spiritual part. It could be the emotional part. Because if you're trying to do something that doesn't feel good,
Yeah.
is emotionally draining on you, then you need to take a look at what it is you're doing, because that shouldn't be a part of the experience.
You should feel like you're headed in the right direction.
Yes.
Yeah. And what about the start now? This is act now. People hear this on infomercials all the time. But again, habits are harder. So what's the power behind starting now?
I mean, now is so powerful. It's truly the only moment that really exists. It's just a series of nows. So if you're ever going to affect change, you can do it now. Because at what point in time can you do something in the future?
True.
It's only going to be now.
And people are waiting for the perfect moment.
Right.
Well, we're coming up on the beginning of a new year. I'll wait until the 1st. And then they put all of this pressure on the New Year's resolution. Or I catch myself waiting until Monday. Oh, it's the start of the week. It'll be a clean slate. Instead of saying, no, the clean slate is, it's 10:30. Right?
Yeah.
10:30 a.m. is just as good a time as any other time to
Right.
start.
Exactly.
So I even catch myself doing that and just pushing it off for something that feels like better timing. And there
Yeah.
really is no better time.
Yeah, there's a new book I've been reading called Atomic Habits. It's a fantastic book, and
Writing that down.
it basically talks about how, just the smallest, actions and habits that we take every single day form the biggest aspects of our lives. And it's like, we're 100 pounds overweight because of those small decisions, added up over time, or, we got washboard abs because of those small decisions that add up over time, and it's like, it's like if you're on a plane from LA to New York and you're 1 degree off, by the time you get, 3,000 miles away or however, you're way not even close to New York,
Yeah.
And so like, it's just like the actions and the atomic habits of our lives determine basically like we are our habits, we are just a result of everything. And so like these tiny decisions have massive implications for all of us. And so like the decision to throw out a bag of meth, taking it one day at a time, that takes you, gives you everything in your life,
Well, it's not meth, but I will think my taco consumption. I want to land in New York, so I will just I will keep thinking of that destination next time I go to Casa Molinas.
There we go.
Now, I've worked with a lot of family-owned businesses over the years, and I'm always looking for insights to share with my clients about how to peacefully occupy the same professional sandbox with your family. As brothers, how do you collaborate? And equally importantly, how do you handle conflict?
Well, for the conflict part, I think it's pretty easy. You just have to go through a meth addiction together.
Is that all?
I think that's it.
Oh, all right. Well, that doesn't sound so scary.
Then you kind of sweat this, you sweat off the small stuff. So,
Yeah. Aside from massive trauma, do you have any other recommendations for siblings in business together?
Well, it's funny, but it's true though, because before our parents were divorced, my brother and I would fight nonstop.
Yeah.
Like
true.
where they thought something was wrong.
Yeah, I'd tattle on him like crazy.
Yeah.
And then I'd
Well,
beat him up or something.
That's your job.
Yeah, that's true. Someone's got to.
But when our parents got divorced, it was like the first time that we banded together. And it really created a strong bond. And then going through the drug addiction together and starting these businesses together. Sure, we'll argue about certain things, but we know that we have each other's best interests at heart, and I think we trust each other. So,
Which is, I think, the key. Because if you have broken trust, I don't care what the relational dynamic is, if it's personal, professional, if you're related or not related, if you have broken trust with the other person, you're going to have all kinds of drama. There's no way you can collaborate. There's no way you can overcome conflict. So repairing that, I think, is really essential. And as you were talking, I mean, we're joking about the significance of what you've been through, but it really did provide you both with a whole lot of perspective very early on. And I think for family-owned businesses out there that tend to quarrel because you're just eating, sleeping, breathing this business. I mean, it's all you ever talk about. You go on vacation and you talk about it. You go home and you have dinner at night. And if you work with your spouse, you talk about it. You just never get away from it. But I think that if you can agree on your why, like, why are we in business together? Why are we on this path together? Why have we chosen to do this as a pair? That lends a lot of perspective to it. And I'm assuming it does make a lot of things look pretty inconsequential.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Things like blow over pretty quickly between the two of you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, like, there's only ever, like, I don't know, a difference of opinion. Like, I think we should do this. I'm like,
And
I don't think so.
and that's the argument. Like, it's the argument.
I don't know.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Well, you've been through enough. There's no need to argue. I'll keep that in mind the next time I'm going to pick a fight with someone.
There you go.
It's not worth it.
But we also do have very clear boundaries with our roles in the business.
That is true.
So we
Which
understand that
helps.
we're not, I'm not crossing. If I do cross over into his boundary, I understand that he's still going to make the decision,
Yeah.
no matter what my opinion is.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Which goes back to respect, which goes back to trust.
Mm-hmm.
You each have your own roles in the business because you each trust that the other has the business's best interest at heart, and you're going to see things through.
Yeah.
So this is giving me a lot of ideas for a couple of folks I owe a phone call to.
You are currently listening to Small Biz Big Voices with Stephanie Rising on Tucson Business Radio X. And now back to the show.
Something else that really struck me, getting ready for our interview today, is just how difficult it is to make a living as an artist. And for listeners who may be artists, or maybe they have a business that's centered around something intangible or very subjective. I mean, even if it's not creative, a lot of service businesses are offering something. If it's not a widget, there's this massive sliding scale of judgment around what you do, right? Mm-hmm. So what advice could you share with people, artists in particular, about making a living off of your art? And what do you wish that you had known when you first started out as musicians?
So I would say that one of the most important things that an artist can do to make a living with their art is learn business and marketing. I think they are absolutely essential. There's always, getting lucky. Which is great. Yeah. Could do that. But I think learning the skills of business marketing, copywriting, offer creation, just sales. Absolutely. Like just these skills that, I had no idea existed up until, I started delving into this world. Those are the keys to success and financially making money with your passion.
It's interesting you bring that up. The very first interview I did was with Dr. Ariana Scholes Douglas, and one of the things that she talked about during the interview was the fact that she had been through all of these years of medical school and all of this training, and she literally could save a baby during delivery. She could save a life. They never taught her how to run a business. They never taught her how to be in practice as a doctor, to market yourself, what to do in a sales situation, the art of making payroll. Nobody really prepares you for that. They prepare you for your craft, but not for all of the operations around it. And I think, Sal, jump in there.
Yeah, absolutely. My brother and I are both classically educated instrumentalists, and there's like maybe two classes, careers in music and music productions.
Mm-hmm. I didn't take that second one.
Yeah, that we're at all geared around, okay, now that you have a music degree, go make money with it. Aside from winning an audition, which is, I think,
like getting lucky almost.
getting lucky, but yeah, that's a big focus for music school. So definitely knowing business, knowing marketing, knowing sales, all of that has been really helpful for us. But also just like some more intangible advice is hold your value. As a creator, as little creator beings, we need to hold our value. And I think that's the biggest reason why artists may suffer.
Mm-hmm. People have no idea how much time it takes to create something from scratch like that. I mean, it's not only the music that you're creating, the lyrics that you're writing, but you have to have even just the germ of an idea to begin with before you can build on anything. I mean, the whole process from start to finish is kind of like ephemeral. And then you have to assign a value to that. And then you have to get other people to understand its value. I mean, this is to really make a good living as an artist. I mean, I think is something to be admired. So on that respectful note, we're going to take a very quick break. This is Small Biz Big Voices, hosted by Stephanie Rising. I'm a small business owner on a mission to get business owners off their hamster wheel and empower them as authentic and influential leaders. I'm really excited to announce that the Rising Effect just won the Southern Arizona Better Business Ethics Award. I wish I knew who nominated me, but thus far it has been a silent good Samaritan. Whoever you are, I am deeply grateful to you. Today, I'm speaking with Sal and Chris Lopez of the LaBros. Now, the two of you have expanded your musical services. Your newest edition is called Legacy Custom Songs, and you compose custom songs for businesses to use in their marketing and also for family members who are looking for a special way to commemorate a loved one. And this kind of ties in where we left off before the break. Given that everyone has their own musical tastes, I imagine that such a service comes with some unusually high expectations. What is it like to create art that is going to be consumed by a really specific audience with very specific expectations?
So it's a bit of a trip, but it's good because of the way that we've formed the process. It allows our clients to really have a say in the lyrics of their music, which is very powerful, not only for the music, but also for them in their healing process of dealing with grief, writing down their feelings, writing down their favorite memories, writing down, their favorite meal, their favorite anything about their loved one that they want to put down. And so we start writing the lyrics, and they will say, I like this, let's change this part or add this part, or I want his name specifically right here. And we do it. And so it lets them feel like, okay, yeah, this is exactly what I want. And then we say, okay, great, we're going to make the music now. And we 100% guarantee you're going to love it. If you don't love it, we'll change it. But we're not going to be asking for your opinion along the way.
Right.
And so we just kind of set up that expectation, and we create the music. We're in our zone of genius. We know what sounds good to us at least. And so we create a really high quality product, and we deliver, and everyone has loved it.
It's such a great idea. How did you come up with the idea for this? Because it's an awesome business model.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I guess the idea came driving back from another seminar.
Yeah.
Yeah, a long drive from San Diego. And so the idea of custom songs has been around since probably the beginning of music. But it's been kind of a struggle to see how custom songs could really be a viable business option. And so what we decided was that we needed to niche it harder and solve a problem. And so that's really
That's smart.
the whole idea between any successful business is that it's solving a problem that people have. And so grief is not really talked about a lot.
Yeah.
The 5 stages of grief came out in the 60s, I believe. I might not quote me on that, but it's been a while. Like, there isn't a whole lot about grief, and people don't feel comfortable talking about grief. Or when you see someone that's in grief, you're like, oh, that's okay. You try and make them feel better. It's like, that's not necessarily what they need right now.
Yeah.
And so I think this is a great opportunity to start more conversations about grief. And we believe that we are providing service to help people heal.
And that's what I love about it. I mean, you're combining beautiful music skills. I mean, I'm a fan. And you're helping people through this process. And then you're also giving them something really beautiful that is theirs and it will last forever. I mean, I just think that this is the coolest idea. And because I always like to keep podcasts light and happy, we're going to go from grief to fear with my next question. Like, the number one fear out in the public, and this is still true. I double checked it before I asked this question. It's still public speaking. People are still more afraid of public speaking than death, which is amazing to me. I think death is a far more permanent set of circumstances. But we all get nervous, especially when you're up on a stage, you're the center of attention like that. You've been performing since you were teenagers, and you not only are playing music, but you are engaging with the audience. You do actually speak during concerts, and then during your keynote concerts, you're definitely presenting. So what did you have to overcome, or do you still have kind of, jitters before you go on stage? How do you deal with that?
Well, I know that I probably had a lot further to go than my brother did in general as far as public speaking goes. But I think, that ultimately, I'm a little competitive. And so
it helps that you're doing this together.
It helps that we're doing it together. Yeah. I mean, insert any of the star system into here. It's
I was going to say tribe.
Yeah, exactly. I wanted to start now to become a better speaker, and this kind of thing. But yeah, so I mean, it a lot of it came down to like video recording myself, and that really, 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 really helped a lot.
That is a brave thing to do.
Yeah, well, yeah. And I know it was really important for, in everything that we do to have a mentor. And so we actually have, he's an incredible speaker coach named Tiamo. And he's also our musicpreneur coach. But he, being in his program, it was really like a speaker, training program. And so we got tremendous value from that aspect of it.
That's a great idea. A speaker coach.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no,
I wrote that down. I mean, there are Hollywood actors who can't watch the movies that they're in because they can't see themselves on screen. I mean, it just gives them the willies. So to actually have the guts to video yourself and study it is, like tip of the hat.
That's funny. We actually, in the 5 years or so as performing with the LaBros, after every single gig, my brother and I would get together and watch the show.
Really?
Yeah, that's what we're doing after every show.
Yeah.
It's watching the recording.
The show again. So
it's like game tape.
Exactly. It's watching the tape, and props to my brother's wife for, like watching the show and then be like, okay,
then
we're going to watch it again.
She's like, I already saw this.
Yeah.
So, Alexis, you're getting a little shout out on today's show. We all love you. My last question for you. I love you have this on your LaBros website. You have a term called lobrify, which you describe as a verb meaning to alter by combining or extracting so that the end result leads to waves of pleasure in the fluid of your cochlea. Of all the instruments What is it about playing trombone that makes your cochlea so happy?
Personally, I think it has to do with the trombone is, hands down the world's best sounding instrument. Just kidding. But
You're not biased in the
I'm not biased,
slightest.
and bass trombone even more so. But no, just kidding. But when our mother was pregnant with us, she would actually play in her community orchestra, and she plays the cello.
Really?
And so she actually would play the cello, on us, and we would, we think we absorbed the low resonant sounds of the cello, and so that probably had something to do with why we play an instrument in that register.
I didn't know that Beth played cello. So
Yep.
that's who you get your music genes from.
Oh, and our dad and our
Yeah.
grandma. She's still running the choir at her church.
So,
Yeah.
all right. So
Our mu-
you
our
come
music
by this
genes run
very
deep.
honestly. Yeah. What is it for you about trombone, Sal?
Well, I was just explaining to someone the other day how the trombone actually has all of the harmonics in the harmonic series in every note that it plays, which doesn't mean a lot to most people, but it's got a wonderful sound.
It literally
It
resonates.
literally
with you.
resonates for me.
Yeah, right.
That's awesome. So if someone wanted all of this to resonate for themselves, what is the best way for them to connect with you?
Well, they can reach out via email to legacycustomsongs@gmail.com.
All right. And I'm writing that down because I want to make sure I get that right. And I'm going to put it in today's show notes so people can seek you out and learn more about the fabulous LaBros. Now we are going to go to the Proust questionnaire. Are you ready?
I think
ready.
so.
It's the lightning round, fellas. The Proust questionnaire was a parlor game made popular by the French essayist and novelist Marcel Proust. He believed that by answering 35 specific questions, an individual reveals their true nature. We're going to go through as many questions as we can in 3 minutes. Ready?
Let's do
Ready.
this.
Okay, you each get to answer the same question. If you could change one thing about yourself, what would it be?
My body fat.
Which is 0. So, there's only
wants
one
more.
direction to go in, Sal.
He
God.
wants more.
I thought we're trying to be honest here.
Oh my gosh! Wow. Okay. Probably some better going to bed early habits.
Going to bed early habits. I could probably change that. What is your idea of perfect happiness?
Experiencing your purpose.
I think it is, kind of leaving a meaningful impact and giving to others less fortunate and just, being the best version of yourself.
Very cool. What is your greatest fear?
That I don't get to experience my purpose.
I think not living up to my potential.
All right, so just a couple of slackers here on today's podcast. Which living person do you most admire?
Oh my gosh.
I'm going to give our college mentor, Moises Paiwanski, a shout out.
So since he took Moises to go with, most admire. Oh my gosh.
Russell.
Right? It's like I'm just going to go with my other coach, Akbar Sheikh.
Good. And last but not least, what is your greatest extravagance?
Current greatest extravagance?
Let's go with current, since we know your origin
Right.
story.
Our old one.
Extravagance? Probably my truck.
Does the amazing Tucson authentic Chinese cuisine count as an extravagance?
Well, I'm gonna guess based on your answer that you kind of take it to a whole different level than just dining out once a week.
Right. Yeah. Well, my wonderful girlfriend, Alana, she is fluent in Mandarin. And so
so she knows where to get the good stuff.
She knows where to get the good stuff. And believe it or not, Tucson has incredible Chinese food for some reason or another. And so we kind of make the rounds.
What's one of your favorite places?
Oh my gosh. Well, one that just opened up right next to my house is called Chef Wang's. And it's actually like authentic Beijing style food.
I'm going to write that down. I just went to Noodleholics not too long ago for the first time.
Oh,
and
nice.
That's pretty yummy.
Yeah, great.
All right. I always go off on a tangent if we're talking about food.
Tacos.
Tacos. Tacos will always be my favorite. All right. If you guys can stick around, I'd love to have you chime in at the end of our last segment. Dear Coach gives our listeners the chance to have their emailed questions addressed. Today's Dear Coach is about the annual summer battle of technology versus vacations. We are right around the corner from summer vacation season, and I've been reflecting on how we choose to celebrate that most intangible of gifts, time. In a U.S. News and World Report article from January 30th, 1967, it was confidently declared that industry is growing more automated, will produce fantastic amounts of wealth for all, and a shrunken work week. Since then, much of our industry has been shipped overseas, leaving our economy dominated by service-based businesses. The newest automation that we've seen hasn't been on assembly lines as much as in our briefcases. Many of us have abandoned desktops in favor of laptops. We have tablets for note-taking and presentations, and smartphones are truly computers in the palm of our hand. This has revolutionized our mobility as service providers, but it has not shrunk our work week, let alone created fantastic amounts of wealth for all. While technology keeps getting smaller and more nimble, our quality of life on the job is not improving. According to Gallup, the average hours worked by full-time employees has increased to 47 per week, despite the fact that the federally recognized definition of full-time is 40 hours a week. Worse still, the poll also found that 39% of full-time employees work 50 to 60 hours a week. Technology is not solely to blame for this new standard, but it greatly contributes to the 24/7 accessibility that makes both business owners and employees feel that they cannot truly step away, at the end of the day. We now even have the ability to strap that access right to our own wrists. For those of us who tend to be categorized as slow adopters, it could be argued that we are Luddites whose preference for brandishing our Timexes and paperbacks rather than our iWatches and iPads makes us outdated and out of step. There is some truth to this. Mobile technologies allow business owners to handle issues remotely, enabling us to travel when previously we believed we couldn't step away for a week at a time. I know many business owners who now take a vacation knowing that they can triage messages with their smartphone or iWatch. The issue isn't so much that technology doesn't contribute positively to our lives. It's when the scales unevenly tip in the struggle for work-life balance that technology becomes more of a hindrance than a help. 61% of Americans report that they work while on vacation, despite their family members' irritation. Whenever I ask a small business owner how they enjoyed their trip, I hear the invariable caveat, well, we all had a really nice time. A family trip was definitely overdue, but I spent more time than I thought answering my emails because, well, apparently no one can handle things completely while I'm gone. In my experience, those statements reveal that, number one, constantly being electronically tethered does not give us the rest we truly need. And number two, it may be easier for employees to use their techno-umbilical cord rather than their own judgment. I agree that technology can be a powerful, highly effective tool. However, it is not a substitute for employee training, effective operational systems, leadership skills, and healthy boundaries. If business owners do not take the time to properly communicate with employees, establish expectations, and encourage them to use their own judgment, then be prepared for the ensuing stream of emails, texts, and calls in fear of making the wrong decision without you. Owning an iWatch or any other piece of sexy technology may be fun and cutting edge, but it won't fix an inherently broken business model or let you take a real vacation. For me personally, the need for healthy boundaries with technology became crystal clear in Muir Woods. On the north side of the Golden Gate Bridge, this ancient, unspoiled space is home to sequoias that have stood through the centuries. We're talking tree rings that go back to the Magna Carta, literally. On my last trip to the Bay Area, I thought Muir Woods would be one of those rare bastions of quiet and true connection with nature, right up until someone standing nearby started talking loudly on their phone. My wonder at the giant trees and delicately cut ferns was rapidly replaced by incredulity that anyone would favor a phone call over such a spectacular scene. Clearly, my astonishment has not left me, and it certainly has been channeled into how I advise my clients. Put yourself in time out. It's okay to disconnect. In fact, it's healthy, not only for you, but for everyone around you. It's as important to recharge your brain and body as your phone and laptop. What that will do for your creativity and judgment will actually be the best thing for your business. So, Sal and Chris, we have a couple of minutes left. What are your thoughts on the technology topic, especially since you confessed that you are getting ready to go on vacation yourselves, gentlemen?
So I have a few thoughts on everything you just said. I completely agree that, there's a balance, right? And you need to be able to recharge and come back fresh and that sort of thing.
Right.
That being said, I think that, this is true for me. I know a lot of high-level entrepreneurs feel that, entrepreneurs live on momentum, and that if we're always, if we're not moving forward, we're dying, And so, vacations for a lot of people, for a lot of entrepreneurs, are actually stressful because they're not working on their business. They're not accomplishing their goals and dreams during that span.
Yes.
And so I think that's kind of where I tend to, lie on that sort of spectrum. But I know if you're constantly busy and you're taking phone calls, you're answering emails, you're doing all this and that, I think that could be a sign of you're more working in your business than you're working on your business.
Yes.
And so I think that something my funnel coach Akbar says. He says, "Do what you do best and outsource the rest." And so I think being that the entrepreneur, the business owner, the CEO, you have that that ability to work on the business and just keep the momentum going even during vacations. And at least I know a lot of entrepreneurs are kind of wired that way. But I totally agree with what you're saying in terms of finding rest and finding that charge you need.
And both for you and for the people that you're going on vacation with.
Yes. It's important for them.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure.
I have a much beloved workaholic in our family. I love him to pieces. But when we go on vacation together, just the phone never stops. And so I feel like I'm not unplugging either because I love my vacation bubble. I need my vacation bubble. And I'll take a notepad with me or my tablet. And because I am so relaxed, sometimes thoughts just start to flow and I'll jot down some notes. But I try and put down just enough where I can pick up the thread when I get home and it doesn't dominate my day. Because it kind of goes back to when we were talking about starting now, because now is the only time that we really have. And so you're going to Italy and Greece. And talk about wanting to be in the moment. That's going to be fantastic. Sal, what do you have to say about this?
Right. I was going to say that not being able to relax on vacation is only a symptom of what's happening in your everyday life. So if you can't unplug, you probably don't unplug at home when you are working every day. And so I think it's important to be able to rest and relax when you're still working at home. So it's making sure you've got boundaries that you can take time for yourself to meditate, to take a nap, to just rest and breathe. And then when you go on vacation, you'll still have, you'll be in a pretty place, but you'll still have moments to rest and relax and meditate and that sort of thing. And so I think if someone can't disconnect while they're on vacation, they probably can't disconnect when they're at home either.
Yeah. I agree. And I appreciate that for some people it is their hardwiring. I mean, they really don't know any other way. They're just natural little energizer bunnies and the brain never turns off. So, I guess for those folks, I personally don't have that problem, but but for those blessed with boundless energy, maybe going over and having like some ground rules with your family before you go on vacation. Mm-hmm. Like, okay, I'm going to spend the first hour of the day triaging emails and kind of making notes to myself and working on the business. And then I will be fully present with you for the rest of the day. Yes. And at least if everybody has a game plan and they know what to expect, just kind of setting those expectations with your family really help, because I've had some like private conversations with spouses of some of my past clients, some of my present clients. I'm just not going to say who to protect the innocent. But the spouses are usually the ones who will come to me and say, can you get him to not bring his laptop with him on vacation this year? I'd really appreciate it. Like, they become my little co-conspirator in the whole work-life balance thing. So it's not that we want everybody to cut off cold turkey, but you've got to have some healthy boundaries around it.
Absolutely.
All right. So I'm going to make Chris pinky swear right here live on air.
Here it is.
He will have boundaries.
I'll have boundaries.
On summer vacation. Well done, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. That brings us to the end of today's episode. If you have a question or problem you'd like for us to talk about during our Dear Coach segment, please email me at stephanie@therisingeffect.com. You can also find today's show notes on my Small Biz Big Voices Facebook page. My thanks again to my guests, Sal and Chris Lopez of the LaBros, my producer, Mark Bishop, and to you for joining us on Small Biz Big Voices.